Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and today's video is the 5-position tier list for patch 7.39c, and we didn't get a patch this week. Usually they don't patch on Fridays, so maybe next week, or maybe it'll be a few more weeks, and this actually, the curse that usually happens whenever I release tier lists won't manifest this time. But regardless, this is the last tier list for the week, the last position, so let's just jump into it. So as we start off here, you can see that the S tier doesn't just have Shadow Shaman in it. I think the 4-position Shadow Shaman really was better than all of the other heroes, where I think the 5-position heroes are a little bit more even or evenly matched. Even though I think I have these heroes up here in S tier, I think you could make arguments for other A tier heroes to bump up and so on and so forth. Maybe even one of these S tier heroes to bump down, just depending on your personal opinion. But I think all these S tier heroes are here for a very specific reason. They do have the best pick rate and win rate of pretty much all the heroes on the list. So first we're going to start off with Undying, and this hero is just at a fantastic spot right now. It's also a very good off lane. I did kind of bump it down maybe one position to, I think, what was it, like B or something in the off lane, maybe only A. I think it is a very good hero right now in general, but I think just it's better as a 5 overall, because as a core, you kind of need to get your farm. You don't really initiate your team fight very well. Obviously, you have your tombstone to take over an area, but people can play around that. And if you're just not snowballing, doing insane amounts of damage, being impossible to kill, and just taking over the game, as a core, it can feel underwhelming. Whereas a 5, it's just absolutely ridiculous what you can do, especially since a lot of the matchups that you're going to be going into these days are usually like a strength off lane and a strength 4, like a melee 4. And I think because there's a lot of these melee and melee matchups, you just have basically 2 melee heroes in the off lane versus 1 Undying, and literally Undying can 2v1 in that scenario. If there's 2 strength heroes especially, but just 2 melees in general, this hero can 1v2, and then you just have a carry that gets free farm and just do whatever they want. If they're passive, they can just passively get their farm. If they're a more aggressive hero, they can participate and get a bunch of kills. This hero absolutely crushes the laning stage, and I really think that's just normally what the hero does, and whether or not the hero is good in a patch is really determined by, can it crush the laning stage? You know, is it doing a ton of damage? Is it very annoying to deal with? But the other thing is, what are the matchups like? Like, are there a lot of popular strength heroes in the off lane and melee strength or 4 positions that are easy to take advantage of from an Undying's perspective? If you have a lot of like ranged off laners, carry off laners, if you have a lot of like ranged support 4 positions, Undying becomes less good because he can't take advantage of those matchups as well. But then also, not only do you stomp the laning stage in these specific matchups because it's a very good patch matchup wise, but then also you do a lot of the same things that you do as a core Undying as a 5 without needing those items. You're still very hard to deal with. You're still super tanky. You know, you just run in, you pop your tombstone, but then at the same time, you don't really care about dying. And you usually have some other kind of initiation, some other kind of team fight on your team from an off lane, from a 4 position, and you're just an added bonus, which I think just makes this hero insanely good. Like, just the added bonus of pressing alt, running in, doing ridiculous damage, being unkillable, and having a tombstone to back up that area of the fight, along with, like, let's say just an arena from a Mars or a Tide ult, or, you know, whatever it is from your off lane or 4 position, that just combination just seems absolutely insane with this hero. So I think that's really what is making the hero so good in this patch, is specific laning matchups, and also just the ability to scale without items and participate a lot and not just be a tombstone bot, because that's the thing. This hero isn't just a tombstone bot when you get into the later portions of the game, and I think that is just key to actually having a lot of success and being S tier right now. Then next we have Silencer, and this hero has been sticking around in the meta for a long time. It feels like even before the 3.9 patch, it was obviously very good. It was probably S tier. It kind of fell out of favor a little bit because I think it did have some changes there, but the nerfs weren't nearly as much as a lot of the other heroes. And I think with other heroes in the C patch specifically getting nerfed, this hero just kind of bumped up a tier. I think it was A tier for a long time and has been A or S tier for a while. And I just think in the recent patch, I think it just deserves to get bumped up. It's popular in pros. It's very popular in pubs as well. And it has like a really good win rate, like 55% or something in high level pubs. So it absolutely stomps. And in a way, it's kind of like Undying in the sense that you can really dominate lanes, especially in melee matchups where you have 2 melee heroes that, you know, you just hit them both with your Arcane Curse. Maybe you even have 1 glaive of Wisdom Point and you just absolutely destroy them by right-clicking them. And then later on in the game, obviously, you can never be counted out with your ultimate. And then I just think the combination of these 2 abilities just makes it very, very annoying for heroes to deal with you in team fights. And hopefully from the 5 position, if you have a lot of farm, and these days with the power creep, 5 positions even are getting a bunch of farm, you actually can transition later into more of a right clicker as well. But really, as a 5 position, you kind of are just focusing on getting Ags and being very annoying with Ags. I think that's the main thing you go towards. Whereas a 4 position Silencer, you're kind of doing a right click build later on, you know, 30, 40 minutes into the game. I think with the 5 position, you're just trying to go for Ags and be super annoying in general. Just press R, maybe press these 2 spells a couple times, and then maybe get a refresher. And that's really what you're focusing on in general. And when it's able to do that, it is very, very good. Even if it doesn't get items, it's very, very good in this specific situation in this patch. I think, like I said, just bumped up a level here in the C patch. And then next we still have Shadow Shaman. I don't really need to say much about this hero because I already talked about it in the 4 position. It's an amazing hero right now. Good at 4 and 5, just S tier hero all around. It's the S tier support just for 4 and 5, but it might just be the S tier hero in general of the patch. I think it's the Shadow Shaman patch. Probably in the B patch, it was the Death Prophet patch, and now that Death Prophet hero has just completely gotten obliterated, like it was nerfed into oblivion. So now it's just the Shadow Shaman patch. I think that's how you can think about this patch in general. And actually, the only surprising thing that I would want to say about this is as a 5 position, it actually has a very, very good win rate, like 55% with chicken fingers on Dota 2 Pro Tracker in high-level pubs. But the Massive Serpent Ward is more popular, but it actually has like a lower 50-ish or below 50% win rate. So I just think as a pure 5, not like getting as many items, not doing as much damage, not being as aggressive, those kinds of things, being more defensive, being more about lockdown, that's probably why the 5 position chicken fingers facet is just a little bit better and has a higher win rate despite not being as popular. So I did want to mention that in general, but you can still pick either one. They're still very good, both of them, of course. And then the last hero that I put in S tier that I was kind of debating whether or not to put this hero here, and that is Oracle. And it is definitely A tier at the very minimum. It's not getting picked a ton, don't get me wrong, so that was the only thing that made me hesitant, but it is getting picked a decent amount, and it has over a 55% win rate in high-level pubs, and I think it's just the best save support in the game right now. I think it's very, very powerful, and so because of that, I said, you know what, I'm going to put this S because I think it is its own unique thing. You know, if you look at these other heroes here, you have kind of these lane-dominating, kind of lockdown or tanky supports. I think if you want a save support, you're picking Oracle, and it has a very, very good success rate in a lot of different situations. I also think because I said a lot of ranged carries are popular, that can be very, very good with Oracle just because of the way the lane setup is, but also because pressing Alt on a ranged hero where they're sitting in the back anyway, and if they do get jumped on, you save them. That is huge. I think that is just way more important for a ranged hero than some of these other melee heroes that jump in, just because if you're jumping in already as a melee hero, you usually have, you know, ways to deal with getting spells thrown back at you or to kind of evade or to jump in and out. You just have more ways to deal with things than like, let's say, a Drow or even like a Nature's Prophet. Yes, you can pick where to TP in on Nature's Prophet, but if you get jumped, having this bailout, I think, is just exponentially more valuable than, you know, if you're an anti-mage or an Ursa or a Slark or a Jug or something like that. So that's kind of my read on the very situation with the patch and how it's developing, very matchup specific. You know, otherwise not really too much to say about Oracle, nothing crazy different, just very, very good right now. Best save, best heal support in the game. Hey guys, just wanted to take a quick second to remind you, I'm streaming every Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Links to my Twitch and Kick are in the description. Also, every Friday I host a 1v1 mid tournament where the winner gets $25 and a random viewer also gets $25. So don't forget to follow there. Also like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and now let's get back to the video. Then moving on to A tier, we have Bane, and this hero is very, very popular in pro level pubs and also in pro matches in general, and I think very, very good in pubs in general as well. And I think 2 things. One, this hero is using Brain Sap. People aren't going Enfeeble, really. I mean, people have experimented with that build, but it's really just not good. So Brain Sap is just really OP, very good for trading, obviously. But then I think the biggest thing is that Sleepwalk facet, where people like kind of walk towards you and you have them nightmared. That just like amps up this hero's ability to just have impact in the lane, but in the game in general, because now, especially in the lane, you're kind of just repositioning them a little bit. And that can never be underestimated, because now they're running away, you nightmare them. Now they're kind of, you're getting some clicks in, but also they're walking back towards you. Your carry can get in the right position, you know, can zone out. Let's say if the offlaner can get zoned out while the support is sitting there nightmare. There's just so many different scenarios where this is good. And then also just the fact that I think this Ags is one of the best Ags in the game. I really do think that. If you get Ags on Bane, you just own the game. It's so hard to deal with a Bane with Ags unless you have like a Tide or some other hero that just has huge AoE stun. And there's almost, honestly, Tide is like the only hero I can really think of. Like, there aren't really any other heroes that can deal with a Bane Ags. The biggest problem, obviously, is getting there, especially from the 5 position. This hero doesn't really farm very well at all. But I think just with the high-level impact in the lane and being able to gank and do all these things that this hero does, eventually, especially with all the farm available on the map, you will eventually get to your Ags even if it's like 40 minutes. And obviously pubs go late anyway. So once you get there, you are just insane. It's so hard to deal with you that I think there is that like mid-game kind of timing where, yeah, you can gank, that's great, but after maybe 15, 20 minutes until you get like your ags at like 20 to 30, 35, this hero has kind of a weak lull in its ability to do much, but that's really not as big of a deal from the 5 position. So I think that's why this hero can be so good and is kind of rising in the ranks in a lot of ways. And I like to see that because I feel like we haven't seen Bane be popular for a very, very long time. Then we have Crystal Maiden. There's nothing crazy new to say about Crystal Maiden. This hero's just been hanging around as one of the good, popular, just classic supports for a long time and has been nerfed and buffed here and there over the past couple years. And I just think still it's a great hero overall in the same ways that it always is. Like very squishy, hard to deal with. Or hard to play in some ways because you can just feed, especially if you're not as good at the game or don't really know what you're doing. But if you can, use your positioning to its effectiveness, all the spells are really good. And I think the biggest thing about the hero in the last couple of years is just the fact that you can farm super quickly with your Frostbite and in the jungle and so forth. So you can get reliable items and then your ultimate doing that much damage and being able to like go for BKB and stuff like that, or even crazy enough, you could go for some kind of right-click build later. The fact that it has so many different paths to go in that way makes the hero dynamic and really reliable. But obviously, the downside, you're still pretty squishy. I just don't think it's completely broken, but definitely A tier for sure. And then Disruptor is very, very good. I would say never pick the Kinetic Fence. I always say that. Don't pick it. Stop memeing. It's not good. I think maybe last time it was S tier. It kind of bumped down a little bit in the C patch, but still it's a very, very classic good hero overall. Nothing crazy new to say about Disruptor. Does all the things that we know that Disruptor has done for a long time. It's just one of those heroes that you can just, honestly, in a lot of cases, solo carry the game with your ags, especially once you get it later. It is just one of those situations, though, if you don't have any other heroes with reliable stuns, it can feel a little bit awkward, but obviously you're picking Disruptor first anyway, so you're not going to know that. So it's more on your team for picking stuns and stuff if you have a Disruptor on your team. Then we have Lion. Obviously, right now, just a discount Shadow Shaman. I think this was the same thing with 4 position. S tier Shadow Shaman, A tier Lion. Same kind of thing. It's just straight up a great lockdown hero. In the same way, if Crystal Maiden can be taken advantage of, can be kind of squishy, can be weird to deal with sometimes in terms of how do you actually position in the fights. It's like a pseudo initiator as well if you get Blink. Not like pseudo, it's like a real initiator, just not like an offlane tanky guy. You just jump in for a gank, hex somebody and stuff like that. But it has a lot of different dynamics. Can still get the shard, which is very good and stuff like that. The only problem with the hero is that the ultimate is not really, like, the ultimate's good, don't get me wrong, but just kind of falls off and is like underwhelming. I think the reason it was S tier maybe 2 years ago or so was when the shard was absolutely giga broken. That's the only time Lion's been S tier, but it's just been A tier then ever since they nerfed that a little bit. It's just been hanging around at A tier. And then we have Clockwork as well. Now we get into the melee supports from the 5 position. Melee supports in the 5 position just aren't as popular. I think the best one, obviously, like we see here, is Undying, just because of the matchups. Clockwork can take advantage of those same matchups. That's why it's still A tier. But in some weird situations, you do have to be careful if you're picking it with a melee carry, because that can make things a little bit awkward. It definitely is better with ranged carries. And that's why, obviously, because ranged carries are popular, that this hero is very, very good right now. So that's why it's A tier. But I think it just, maybe it was S tier last time. I think it just bumped down one slot here. Just still a very, very good hero in general. And then Ogre, again, a classic support that's pretty good. I think the biggest thing with this hero, again, like these melee supports that can dominate lane, is this hero can dominate lane if you take the facet that where you get that level 3 or 3 levels in your abilities at level 2. That is just absolutely broken in a lot of different situations. You will absolutely crush lanes with this hero, with your slow and your damage over time. And with the stun and the slow combo, and then even getting like 1 point, maybe even an attack speed for like any kind of hero that you're laning with, can just absolutely destroy. So at level like 3, 4, 5, like even before you get 6, you're just probably one of the strongest heroes in the game, right up there with Undying, and that's why it's up here. Because otherwise, then once you're out of the laning stage, you probably even in most pubs can go for Midas. And then eventually you just kind of become, okay, I'm stunning, I'm slowing people, I'm being annoying, I'm a little bit tanky and hard to deal with. That's why probably it's not as good as Undying. I think Undying has more team fight potential than maybe the Ogre does. And once you get to 30, 40 minutes, it's kind of like, okay, Ogre's just this weird stun bot. And it's like, it's fine, don't get me wrong. It's just not as impactful as some of these other big heroes with big ultimates like Disruptor and stuff like that. And then lastly for A tier, we have Warlock. And this hero is actually pretty popular in pro games as well. It's been picked a bunch in the most recent tournaments. And so I think just in general, I also give this hero a little bit of a bump for pubs, just because the lower you go in MMR, the more reliable this hero is as a late game, just like, team fighter and win the game by myself as a 5 position because I get farm. And so I think in pubs, it's always going to be a little bit higher than what it otherwise would be. And I think it's just been sitting around A tier. Like, it hasn't been touched too much. They haven't really nerfed it too much, buffed it too much. I think it was like super broken or very, very good maybe a year or two ago. And then it kind of fell down after some nerfs, but it's slowly been crawling its way back up till now it's in A tier again. And it does all the same things Warlock has done for a while. Obviously, the spread damage is crazy. The slow is very good. The ultimate can carry late game, but you do have some weaknesses where you're squishy, and sometimes your laning stage isn't as impactful. But then being against two melee heroes where you link them with the creeps and the melee heroes, and even potentially neutral creeps can have a lot of impact and stuff like that. So you do have your weaknesses, don't get me wrong, but again, it scales so well that you just probably are not going to go wrong picking Warlock in a lot of your pubs. Then next, moving on to B tier, we have a bunch of classic supports that are just decent. You can totally pick these heroes, but they're not broken or like insane in any way. AA is kind of like settled out here, I think, right in the B tier, and that's where AA, I think, belongs. It was like S tier in the previous, before 3.9 patch. It was just so good. Then got nerfed pretty significantly, fell down to maybe around C or so, and now I think B is where it's settled out as people are realizing this hero is still okay. It's just not nearly as good as it once was. Also, the heroes that this hero counters a lot aren't as popular as they were, so that's another thing too. Like, the regen heroes just aren't as popular. It's a little bit harder to hit your ultimates these days against certain matchups, so that's another thing. You're not farming as well and stuff like that, but you're still definitely pickable, definitely having good impact. The healing still does matter. People still buy Satanic. There are still a lot of healing carries and mids and stuff like that, so you can still have a lot of impact with AA. Same thing with Lich. Was broken maybe a year ago, and then it kind of got nerfed, fell down to maybe C or B tier. Now it's just settled out at a solid B. It's still very good, don't get me wrong. The shard is good. The Ags can be good at times. You can still solo kill people at times if you just, have your shard out and you just ult them and they're just, pull them in and stuff like that. It's still very good, just not as powerful as it once was. So totally reliable, decent hero, just not super broken. Veno, I always say I'm not a fan of Veno. I just don't love Veno. But if I was going to love Veno at all, I would love it as a 5 position, just because you don't have to get items. You don't have to do anything. You're just this extra insane magic poison damage over time that can just absolutely obliterate people. And obviously, I think as a 5, it's also very good because you just start the lane closer to your tower. So if you do Gale somebody, you and your carry can chase them down a lot easier. So I just think that 5 is the best position for Veno, and that's my personal opinion. And where it is now, I think it's just right at the B tier, right as a decent support overall. And late game, without even any items, without getting an Ags or anything, you just have an ultimate that is good, that does good damage. You have wards that just give vision, and that's all you really need to do. And so because of that, it's just a decent hero here, where I don't love it, like I said, in all these other roles. And then Dazzle is kind of, I think I said this in the 4 position tier list as well, made its way back into the meta. I think it dropped off a cliff after the recent nerfs, and then it kind of came back. People realized, okay, this hero does do well just as a typical healing support. It is still very good. I don't think it's as good as Oracle, but it is still decent. If you want a healing support, you probably have Oracle first and then Dazzle second. Dazzle's getting picked a decent amount. It does have a decent win rate, and it's a decent hero overall. And yes, you're not like doing insane right-click damage. You're not, building core Dazzle like you used to, but just having that ultimate, like I said, where you can sit in the fog a little bit and then use your ultimate to stay a little safer and cast all your abilities is a benefit even to the support Dazzle as well. Then we have Witch Doctor, and this one, just with win rate, pick rate, is right at B tier, but the lower you go, basically below 4K MMR, you can't go wrong with picking Witch Doctor, to be honest. Like, I think if I was making like a Herald or 1K tier list, this hero just might always be S tier, because you just can't count out this hero solo carrying the game. And you can kind of solo carry the game at all points of the game. And that's the thing. Like, early on in the laning stage, the Maledict is insane. Like, if you get people in the wrong position and you get a Maledict on somebody and they don't know what they're doing and they're not, positioning their hero correctly, you will just kill them. You will just like destroy the enemy in the laning stage. And then once you get your ultimate, you can easily solo kill people around the map, or easily protect towers, or easily, push towers and have insane team fight. And then late in the game, you can do that same thing. If you get an Ags, you will just absolutely carry the game with literally just a Glimmer and an Ags. Like, that's all you need, and you can totally solo carry the game if you know what you're doing and you get off the spells in the right order at the right time, and then with your shard and the survivability, it's just insane what this hero can do. The problem is, the higher MMR you go, the more people are understanding how to deal with Witch Doctor. They don't really let the Witch Doctor get off those spells in the lane. They kind of play a little safer. Later on in the game, sometimes it's harder to get off those ultimates at good spots. If you're a really good Witch Doctor player, you can still do it. Don't get me wrong, when you get into higher MMR. That's why it's still B tier, but just not as reliable, when you get in those better games against better teammates. Then next we have Jakiro, and this is kind of one of those heroes, just like like an AA that was really good like a couple patches ago, a few months ago, then got nerfed and just fell down a lot, but it's just settled out right at B tier. It's still very good, still does a lot of damage. You know, the Ags is still good, don't get me wrong, even though it was nerfed. It's still something you want to buy, just not as broken or insane as it once was. So you can still do a lot of damage, you can still harass the enemy, you can still max your right click ability instead of maxing your breathe fire thing. So you can still do all of that kind of stuff or choose between the two if you want to, but it's just not nearly as good as it once was. So it's right there in B tier, still decent, still does a lot of damage, has good lockdown, stuff like that, but not absolutely broken. Then Winter Wyvern, one of those where as a 5, you just have a good ultimate that can be very annoying, especially with the new thing that I can't remember when they introduced it, but like in the last 6 months or so, when the facet or whatever, where it like jumps the ultimate from hero to hero, I think that just allows this hero to have a lot of effectiveness from the 5 position where you don't really need to do much else but just be that ultimate that disrupts the enemy's initiation. I think that's honestly good enough. And then, hey, if you do get your items, you can transition to do more damage later, and that's totally fine, but you don't have to as a 5 position. That's why it's pretty good. I do think it will have some weaknesses, like in the lane, it can be good sometimes, and then other times it can feel like this hero doesn't really do much other than, you know, just harass a little bit, and then you have this downtime where you don't have your harassing abilities up, and then it's like, okay, what is Winter Wyvern really doing? Not really a threat to do anything, and so that's why it's a little bit lower down on the tier. And then, like I said, if you do just become an R bot where you just press R, that's good, but it's not the best. Then we have Venge. Just overall, this hero I think is best as a 5. Personally, I like it as a 5. I always say it's better probably as a support than a 3. I don't love it as a 3 because, I mean, it's better as a 3 as a core, but the problem is, again, you're sacrificing yourself. You have to get the Ags. You are, you know, running in. You're just this extra thing. You hope that the rest of your team is doing a lot of other stuff. But as a 5, it's like fine because you can be self-sacrificial and don't really care about your life as much. But you really do want to get Ags, so it's one of these weird things where you're not having as much money as you otherwise would want to get that Ags early. So, you know, the later that Ags goes, the worse it is. But if you can have a good game where you're getting an Ags at like 20 minutes or whatever, you will, or before, you will absolutely stomp games with this hero. It's just all about getting that good Ags timing. And then Tusk, because it's a good hero overall right now, it's a really, really good 4 position, probably the most popular, one of the best 4 positions. Obviously, I did have Shadow Shaman up there, but Tusk is right up there. I was even debating putting Tusk potentially S tier. People are liking it, especially in pro games, but it is great overall. I just think that as a 5, it's not as good because it's not really a 5 hero. Melee 5s are a little bit suspect at times, so you'd probably rather have an Undying, probably rather have an Ogre in general, but Tusk is definitely very, very good. Just sometimes can have weird laning stages where you're not as dominant, because you're definitely not as dominant of a laner as these two. In very specific matchups, though, you can have a lot of success. Same thing with Pudge. I kind of put that along there too, that I'd rather have a 4 Pudge than a 5 Pudge. 5 Pudge, for the longest time, I was like raging against the 5 Pudge, and I was like, this is not a thing. Stop picking it. I hate everybody that picks it. But I've come around to say, okay, it is semi-viable. It does have a decent win rate. People are picking it, and I've seen people develop pretty good abilities to hook people under tower and really snowball the game as 5 Pudge. So I think maybe like 5 years ago, Pudge was just like, dude, if you pick 5 Pudge, I'm pissed off, and you're just automatically losing me the game because you do nothing. People have learned how to adjust to that and actually make it work. So I'll put Pudge right up there in B tier, just decent, but not the best. And then next we have 2 heroes that I kind of put in the same category, Abaddon, Pugna, both save and heal supports. I think they're pretty good right now, just average. You can totally get away with picking them. I think you probably would rather have a Dazzle in terms of a heal support, but the problem with Dazzle is, and why they're in the same tier, is just because Dazzle is a bad matchup with Axe. And Axe is so popular that if you pick Dazzle, the enemy's probably going to pick Axe. They might just pick Axe anyway, you know, because they're picking Axe all the time because it's so popular. And then if you're against an Axe, it feels really, really bad. So these heroes are good in general as save and heal supports, along with Dazzle, along with Oracle, which I think is the best one right now. And like I usually say, Pugna always seems to come back into the meta, even if it drops down to like D tier and people don't pick it, then people are like, oh wait, Pugna's pretty good at healing. I still don't love the hero in pubs. I'd probably rather have even an Abaddon just because of the save with the shield and stuff. And if you do get Ags on Abaddon, it's insane. But Pugna is very good, and you know, high level players do like the hero. And then Zeus is one of these weird, unique heroes where it's all about the damage. You don't really have any team fight. You don't really have any utility other than dewarding. And I don't love it, to be honest. I probably would want to put it C, but it does have a very, very good win rate when it is picked in high-level pubs. So I can't really ignore that. That's why I'm putting it B, but I just personally don't love it, especially as a 5. It just feels really awkward, but I can't ignore the win rate. I can't ignore that it is getting picked. It does have some success, so I'm going to put it there, even though I personally don't love the hero just because of what it gives you. I feel like if I have a 5 Zeus, I'm like, what is really happening? Sometimes it'll absolutely delete low HP heroes and just kind of win the lane for you, but sometimes it feels like it does nothing. You know, you have like mana for 2 spells, and then what is my Zeus really doing? And then hopefully late game it can scale, but other than that, it's just a little bit awkward. And then we have Nature's Prophet, again, sort of just like the 4 position. It's becoming more of a carry again, less of a support. It was really popular as a support. I probably had it in S or A tier last time. Maybe it did deserve that, I'm not sure. But with the recent C patch, I think it just dropped down a bit, and I don't really love it too much in general as a support. I feel like it is a bit grief, so that's why I'm putting it B tier. Maybe you could argue it's a little bit higher, but I just don't think I want to see Nature's Prophet 5 in my game. If anything, if I was just purely my opinion and not like based off any statistic, I'd put it F. Stop picking this. I don't want to see it, but I mean, it is what it is. People are having success. It is pretty decent. So I'm putting it at B, just at the end of the list as like a niche and kind of weird specialist hero. Then for C tier, viable heroes, but not very good, we have Ringmaster, kind of just fallen off a lot since it was good a few patches ago. And overall, it's just one of these weird heroes because there's not a super reliable stun. There is like a weird damage that you can do a ton of, but then that's not reliable either. And then it has a good save, but it just so many weird things that the hero does. It's just an awkward thing where it was very, very good before because I feel like all the abilities were good and then got nerfed pretty significantly. So now it's fine. If you're a Ringmaster player, you can totally pick it and it can be viable, but it's not the best. Then Grimstroke is at a weird spot because I don't play a lot of Grimstroke, but I actually was recently doing the All Hero Challenge and I played Grimstroke and I felt like it was a pretty good hero. Now, don't get me wrong, that was a turbo game, so it's one of those that when Grimstroke gets a lot of items, this hero feels like it's insane. But I think that's the problem, is that you do have trouble getting to that spot. And I think in the laning stage with not having the super reliable stun and the silence being a little bit awkward at times, it's just a little bit of a weird hero. I would love to see the hero get buffed though, just because it is one of those heroes that I feel like it's just been sitting around this D, C, at most B tier for a long, long time. And it's one of those newer heroes that I would love to see get some buffs to be up to A and S. I think at one point, it actually maybe a couple years ago, it was very good. And then they like changed how the stun went off or something. Like you couldn't just like make it happen whenever you wanted. And then it's been bad ever since. Even when they reverted that change for whatever reason, it just never really gotten back into the meta. So I think look for in the next 6 months to a year, Grimstroke kind of being on the upswing and getting another buff or two and being pretty good. Then we have Willow. I think I put Grimstroke and Willow kind of in the same weird category where they're relatively new heroes that don't have super reliable stuns and just a little bit awkward at times. I would put Dark Willow, though, as more of a 4 position just because I feel like this hero just has better scaling potential in terms of right-clicking and getting ags and stuff like that, and can be awkward in those senses, where Grimstroke I feel like is more of a team fight kind of support hero that is good as a 5. But maybe if it does get popular, it's going to be better as a 4, who knows. But I put Dark Willow in that category of just better as a 4. So as a 5, it's fine, but sometimes in the laning stage without that reliable stun, it feels a little bit awkward and weird. Then next we have Hood, and I put Hoodwink, again, with these other 2 supports. It's a newer hero that has like a weird kit that, in the same way that Dark Willow can also kind of carry from the 4 position, Hoodwink could do that for a long time. Then the Gleipnir change, just like I said in the 4 position tier list, got changed, and then it wasn't very good. But now Hoodwink's kind of coming back as just not needing to go for that full right-click build, going for more of the shard and the ags and doing magic damage and being hard to kill and deal with, as well as buying like a force and a glimmer and stuff like that for allies. So that's kind of what's bringing Hoodwink back, but it's still not great. And Hoodwink's another one of those that I would love to see. Like, I would love to see all 3 of these heroes be popular and be good, just because they are so unique and interesting with their kit. It's not like don't get me wrong, Lion and Shadow Shaman, they're pretty easy to play, but they're pretty straightforward. Like, you know what you're doing with those heroes. Pretty straightforward stuns, easy to play. Not really a lot of complicated stuff. Where Hoodwink, Dark Willow, Grimstroke, I like how all these heroes play in just the sense that their kit is very unique and interesting. And then next we have Snapfire, one of my favorite heroes as a support. Like I said, I think even in the 4 patch, I probably say this every single time, but I love picking this hero just because it has such reliable farm, even from the 5 position. And yes, it is awkward sometimes. It doesn't scale super well, but I think at the 5, you don't really care about that. You can just use your ult around, in the first 15, 20 minutes of the game. And then from there on, because you are such a reliable farmer, that you can get your Glimmer, your Ags, your Ghost Scepter, you can get all these things that can help your teams. That's why I really do like the hero, even if the win rate and pick rate isn't the best. Then Tree, obviously another melee hero, but from the 5 position, you're just going to go with Undying or Clock or something like that, Ogre rather than Tree. You can have specific matchups where you do very well, but overall it's just not great. And then late game, you're just pressing R, and that's all you're doing. That's the problem, I think, with the hero, is you're just pressing R. And then what are you doing? Are you split pushing? Are you going for meme hammer, like just meteor hammering waves and towers, and then you're just like saving up for an Ags? That's just like super low impact and awkward. And that's, I think, the biggest problem with the hero, honestly, is that after the laning stage, which you're still decent at, but probably not even as good as Undying, you just don't do anything but press R in fights. And so that's the weird part. Then Io, just a worse save support because you just don't do anything else other than just follow someone around and save them. And in pubs especially, the TPing to random fights is just not going to be as good. Yeah, even at my level, people do use Io in a smart way across the map, but you know, if you're not above like 4K, like people aren't just going to use this ultimate to any effectiveness. So that's why this hero is just not great, because you just rather have any other kind of heal on your team than the Io, and that's the problem. Then Phoenix, a niche pick, which is very good. In general, if you can get away with it, I almost put Phoenix in a similar category to Warlock, where like these heroes don't have reliable stuns, and their laning stage can feel underwhelming sometimes. Like they're just supporting the, you know, carry in the lane, where they're just like, okay, we're just kind of trying to make your lane easy, but at the end of the day, we don't really do too much. You know, we can get some aggressive harass in and stuff like that, slow the enemy and things like that, but you're kind of on your own in a way, and that's the big problem, is the laning stage is a little bit weird for this hero. But then if you do get to 20, 30 minutes and you have a good lane, have a good game in general, you can literally win the game by yourself. And then Bat, I'm putting Bat here. Again, just like I said in all the other tier lists when I include Bat, I don't really know exactly where this hero goes. It feels awkward, feels weird. It's coming back in the meta. People are experimenting, figuring it out. It's having a decent-ish pick rate and win rate at different spots, but I'm not fully sure, and I don't think even anyone is fully sure where this hero fits in terms of the meta and pubs and even pro play overall. I mean, the pros probably have a better idea, but I still think there's some experimentation and some room for this hero to grow even without much changes. So I'm putting it C. I think it definitely is a weird, unique hero that can work at times, but as a 5, I don't know. It's like, you know, in that Phoenix Warlock tier where you don't have a reliable stun, you're kind of doing damage, you're annoying the enemy, but is that good? I don't know. It's hard to say. So that's why I think it's only C tier. Then lastly, for semi-viable heroes, we have D tier with Shadow Demon. This hero is just not very good right now. I think in pubs in general, it's just an awkward hero overall. But if you look at the win rate, it's just absolutely abysmal. So just pretty much don't pick Shadow Demon. I don't see why you ever would. And then Techies is just all about the damage. But I mean, like if you're going for a Techies thing, you should just go with Zeus, even though I even don't like Zeus in general. But Techies damage is just kind of in the same realm as Zeus. Like you're going for all this magic damage. Yes, you sort of have a stun, but whatever. So Zeus also has like a pseudo stun to like cancel TPs and stuff like that. So I don't know, just one of these weird awkward heroes that doesn't have a good place in the meta right now. Enchantress, just again, not a great hero. I put Enchantress and Chen in similar categories just because they both like control creeps, even though I know Enchantress is more of like a tanky, you know, click the enemy and do a lot of damage later. It just feels awkward sometimes because their laning stages can feel underwhelming, especially if people don't know how to play around their creeps. Plus, they are specialist heroes in that sense. I think specifically with Ench, if you know what you're doing and you can scale into the late game as a right clicker, you can absolutely own. But that's not really what I want from my 5 position necessarily, unless it's just doing that every game and just destroying games by itself. But again, I think you could do that if you knew what you were doing and you are a really good Enchantress player, but overall in the meta it's just not great. Same thing with Chen. Like, sure, maybe you're supporting and doing things, but every time I see someone pick Chen, I just see them like, you know, follow their team to do something and their team just messes up and then it gets all of their creeps killed and then Chen just like does nothing and has no effectiveness. Then Elder Titan, very weird as a hero. Again, not a reliable stunner. Yes, can have insane impact with the with the ultimate following up on, you know, a stun, and on an allies like initiation can have insane effectiveness with the passive, but overall that just feels like in pubs especially you're not going to be able to do that very often. And I think the big thing that makes this hero good is like the Ags, but that's more of like an off lane build and I don't think that's very good either. So it's just one of these weird things where sometimes it's very good in pros, but otherwise it's almost like never picked or never good in pubs. Then Marcy at a weird spot in general overall, but I think as a 5 it's just this probably worst position, I would say maybe. And so if you have a Marcy as a 5 position, I'm just feeling, what is this doing? Maybe in specific matchups, it's going to be good and you can get aggressive, but otherwise it feels weird. Omni Knight, probably the worst save and heal support in general, so that's why it's down here in D tier. That's really all I have to say about Omni. Probably more of a core these days. I'd rather see Omni be a core, honestly, than a support, because when it's a support, I feel like it's super boring. Gyro, I almost would consider taking this off the list, but it can work, I guess, and people do pick it. But again, it's sort of like a Techies where it's all this magic damage focusing on the rocket, just very weird and awkward. I'd rather have some other kind of hero. And then Bounty, because it's a good 4, people try to pick it 5, but I don't like it. I honestly would even put it in F tier maybe, but the win rate's like okay, so I was like, okay, whatever, I'll put it in D, but I don't love it as like as a 5, because this just feels like you're griefing a lot of the times. Again, because no reliable stun. Like if you can get aggressive and get the harass in and you have a good combo with you and your carry that you can like just dominate the lane, that can be good, but you better have a lot of stuns and a lot of other things happening in the mid and the 4 and the 3 in order to get away with this as a 5. But you're picking it first, so you don't even know. So half the time you could just be griefing with a 5 bounty. Then lastly, we have D tier, and Tinker fell off a cliff. This hero is just not a 5 anymore. Maybe it's a 4 sorta, but even then, what is it? C, D tier. So it's not very good right now. Just don't pick it as a 5. Same thing with Wind. Like yeah, okay, the shard is fine, but whatever. That's all you're playing with or playing around as a 5. Like, no, just don't pick it as a 5. Not very good. Pick it as a 4 if anything. Alchemist, I could almost take off the list. This is a meme. Stop doing it. And Keeper of the Light, just not very good. You know, maybe if you're pairing it with Medusa only. That's the only time you're picking this hero 5, really. And that, everyone, is the 5-position tier list for patch 7.39c. As always, guys, if you like the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.